The history of Moses. Dear friends, in today's story, we will learn about Moses who led Israel so far and who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. Moses was born in Egypt as the youngest of the 3 children of Amram and Jochebed from the tribe of Levi. When Jacob's family came to Egypt in the time of Joseph, and as years passed, they multiplied and grew exceedingly strong, there arose a new king in Egypt who did not know Joseph, and he made the Israelites his slaves. But even in this time, God multiplied them. Afraid of this, Pharaoh ordered that all the male children born to the Hebrews must be thrown in the river. At that time, Moses was born, and he was beautiful in God's sight. So his mother hid him for 3 months without fearing the king's edict. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and she saw the baby. She felt sorry for him even though she knew he was a Hebrew baby. She gave Jochebed the baby to nurse him without knowing she was his mother. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. Pharaoh's daughter named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." And Moses grew up in the palace, and was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and was powerful in speech and action. When Moses was 40 years old, he remembered what his mother had taught him when she nursed him, taking payment from Pharaoh's daughter, and decided to visit his fellow Israelites, and looked on their burdens. He saw one of them being mistreated by an Egyptian, so he went to his defense and avenged him by killing the Egyptian. Moses thought that his own people would realize that God was using him to rescue them, but they did not. The next day, Moses came upon 2 Israelites who were fighting. He tried to reconcile them, but they pushed him aside. When Pharaoh heard of all these things, he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian. In Midian, he married Zipporah, the daughter of a priest called Ruel, also known as Jethro. Moses lived there looking after the flocks of his father-in-law for 40 years, and there he had 2 sons. Then one day, Moses reached Mount Horeb, grazing his father-in-law's flocks. At that time, God, hearing the cry of the Israelites and remembering the covenant he made to their forefathers, decided to save them and appeared to Moses in the burning bush. When Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up, he decided to go closer. When he heard the voice of God, he hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. When Moses came to know that God wanted to send him to deliver Israel from Egypt, he was not ready to go. 40 years ago, Moses tried to do the same thing by himself. But now when God himself wants him to do it, he is reluctant. All of Moses' excuses were in vain. And at last, Moses surrendered to God's will. God, hearing Moses say that he was slow of speech and tongue, appointed Aaron to speak in place of Moses. Thus, as one appointed by God, Moses took Aaron along with him and went to Egypt. Moses and Aaron brought together all the elders of the Israelites, and told them everything the Lord had said to Moses. He also performed signs before the people, and they believed. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and asked him to let Israel go. But Pharaoh did not listen. Then God performed signs and miracles through Moses. Every time when there was a plague, Pharaoh would promise to let Israel go. But when the plague stops, Pharaoh would harden his heart and not let Israel go. Later, when in the 10th plague his firstborn died, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and told them to leave Egypt with the Israelites. Thus the Israelites started their journey under the leadership of Moses. He took the bones of Joseph with him, because Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear an oath that when God comes to their aid and delivers them, they must carry his bones out of Egypt. Following God's leading, the Israelites reached the Red Sea, not very far from Egypt. By then, Pharaoh, regretting his decision to free Israel, summoned his army and followed the Israelites. But God split the Red Sea and brought Israel safely across, but drowned Pharaoh and his army in the sea. When the Red Sea went back to its position after the Israelites had crossed, God cut off all the relations Israel had with Egypt. But the Israelites did not cut off Egypt from their heart, and they grumbled against Moses and God. When God was fed up with the Israelites' grumbling and decided to destroy them, Moses stood between them and pleaded for them. And God heard his plea. When years of grumbling and rebellion had passed and they reached near their promised land, Miriam, Moses' sister, died. They buried her at Kadesh where she died. Now there was no water for the community, and the people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron. There Moses disobeyed God's command, and instead of speaking to the rock, he struck it. Even though water gushed out, God, angry at their disobedience, declared that they would not enter the promised land. Then they set out from Kadesh and came to Mount Hor. There Aaron died. Then Moses gave the lands of Jazer and Gilead, the land which the Lord had subdued before the Israelites, to the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh as their inheritance. Then he appointed Joshua his aide as the new leader. Moses, who received God's commandments for the Israelites directly from God, reminded the Israelites of it. Thus Moses faithfully completed everything that God had commanded him to do. Moses, the servant of God, whom God attested as the most humble person on earth, died at the age of 120 in Moab, as per God's word, and God buried him. Moses died in the same year as his brother Aaron. As the curtain closes for Moses' life here on earth, God's plan for him isn't over yet. In the next video, we will go into the 6th book of the Bible. God bless you.